Adoption in modern-day America is vastly different than adoption was in the Roman Empire. We tend to picture adopting a small child, often from a foreign country or from foster care. Those children are helpless or in a dire situation, and then they're brought into a family. When we picture this passage this way, we infuse into it our culture, saying that we are helpless babies and God brings us into his family. However, that's not how the Ephesians would have read this passage, because Roman adoption practices were that you would often, if you didn't have children or couldn't have children or had incapable children, would adopt a grown man who would take over your business, take over your land. They would take over your legacy. Adoption practices in the Roman Empire were so that you would have someone to further and perpetuate your name, your legacy, your inheritance. So it was grown men, and typically people would adopt capable, trustworthy, responsible men to carry on their business well. In fact, some of the Caesars even did this. They had their own biological children who were in some form considered inept, and because of that, they adopted another one who would carry on not just the inheritance of Caesar, but the title of Caesar. So adoption in the Roman Empire wasn't so much to bring a helpless baby into a family, but to perpetuate the name of the person who adopts. When we infuse this back into the passage, it gives us great light and insight into what the passage is saying. God chose us, predestined us, and adopted us, not primarily for us. We get benefits, don't get me wrong, we get benefits of that adoption, but primarily God did it so that we might perpetuate his name, his fame, his glory, and his inheritance. God adopted us so that we might be for the praise of his glorious grace. Now, typically people would adopt somebody who's trustworthy, responsible, somebody who's going to do a good job in carrying on your legacy. However, Ephesians 2 tells us that we were dead in our transgressions and sins. We were separated from Christ. We were hostile to Christ. We were God's enemies. God didn't choose somebody who was put together, who dressed the right way and talked the right way, who was responsible and capable to carry on his name and legacy. Instead, God chose people who were his enemies. God chose people who were dead. They were so helpless in their sin that they were absolutely dead. He did this so that we might be for the praise of his glorious grace.